All right, everybody. How's everybody today? It is time for week two, presentation, three theories of administration. So let's jump right in. Let's see. We got first one I did was Woodrow Wilson and the politics administration dichotomy. And the main idea of this, it posits that lawmaking or politics should be separate from administrating the effects of those policies. While there's going to naturally be some kind of bleed over in the middle, the idea is, as much as possible, politics that is subject to public whims, the fickle nature of the electorate should be separate from the actual rules administration of that, which need to be done far more equitably. And this is not necessarily a new idea. Going back to the federal constitution in 1787, you had Congress, which was given the ability to make law, and then the executive branch that was supposed to faithfully execute the laws. And the founding fathers really had this idea that we should probably keep these things nice and separate for the good of the republic. As far as the politics administration dichotomy is concerned, you see this. Like I said, it's not a new idea, but you see it kind of more and more in the 20th century with the growth of the executive branch at the federal level, as well as in most cities at the local level. You see this a lot, the rise of the council manager form of government, where you have a professional manager that manages the city that is separate from the city council and the mayor that appoints that manager. Moving on, let's see. That handsome fellow over there on the left is Frederick Taylor, and he is famous for his idea of scientific management, which really seeks to accomplish tasks the one best way by specialization and repetition. It's somewhat rigid. It really enforces that there's really only one way to do the work. Taylor himself would dispute that. He would say, no, 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 this isn't rigid. Somebody may come up with the notion of an even better way to do it, but they have to do it this one best way before they can even think about improving upon it. So, see, it's flexible. Frederick Taylor is very much of his time. This is in the early 20th century. This, historically speaking, is a time of great scientific and technological innovation. This is when you see the first airplanes, the first, sometimes you see goofy things. There was this idea of wellness, and you could take these cure-all elixirs, and it would make you healthy. So that was kind of goofy. That's how cornflakes actually gets its start. Sometimes, science and technology were also being used in really kind of horrific ways as well, such as eugenics or the kind of horrific weaponry of World War I. So for good or ill, science and technology are really kind of becoming an important thing. And Frederick Taylor, his idea of scientific management is really kind of a product of that time. Also, that's the era of Henry Ford and his assembly line. So very much of this era of the kind of 1910s. And while a certain amount of specialization is good, Henry Ford is widely cited as an innovator, and it really was at the time. Specialization is good, however, taken to its extreme, scientific management would cause exhaustion, repetitive motion injury, and also, most importantly, massive job losses to technology. This is particularly true in the private sector. Taylor himself would also dispute this and say, oh, no, no, no. Anytime that we've had any sort of technological innovation, it leads to better lives for everybody. It makes jobs easier. It increases productivity, which in turn makes more money for more people. And as we've seen, that is really not the way things work. It's kind of this quaint notion that gains are evenly shared throughout the economy, when we know that in the last 40 years anyway, gains have mostly accrued to the top, to bosses who profit off of the increased profitability. Real wages haven't moved for most Americans since the 1970s. So there's kind of this quaint notion that we're all in this together and that your employer is always your friend, and that's not always the case, particularly as you see the decline in union membership in the private sector. In the public sector, it's less applicable. Scientific management is kind of it best applies, I guess, to manufacturing type jobs, assembly line type of work. It doesn't really apply as well to government work. Often it's very ambiguous, and you have to be able to do more than one thing. If you try and do one thing and one thing only, it's not very beneficial in the public sector. So Moving on, Henri Fayol, that stern-looking dude over on the left. He is famous for his 14 principles of management, which are much more flexible than Taylor's more rigid scientific management. And these they deal with the qualities that a manager should possess or should implement in his organization or her organization, including discipline, order, unity of command, unity of direction. These really aren't surprising anyway. I mean, these are kind of things that we associate with management, authority, and division of labor. But one of the ones that is really important for the public sector is equity. Equity is an important component of public sector jobs, and part of that is that public sector jobs have um, are more likely to be unionized workforces, and unions really exist kind of to see that employees are treated fairly. So this idea of equity is something that is very much still with us today. Another thing that Fayol also promotes is this idea of esprit de corps, morale, basically. This idea that employees should actually like going to work and maybe not hate their boss. So the idea that a happy employee is more likely to be a productive employee. And nowadays you'll see the welfare of employees that are addressed in various ways, including in the public sector, it may be generous benefits packages. Many public sector jobs do have that. Some places may have on-site daycare, which is actually kind of a big one, and that kind of ensures equity, particularly between men and women. At my office, it's done a little bit different. I work for the LA County Assessor in the East District office, and this has been something that in the office, people kind of voted that they wanted. And so on scheduled break times in the break room, at designated times, there are people who like to do Tai Chi for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. Not my thing, but some people really enjoy it and tends to make their work a little bit happier. And also sometimes during the lunch hour in that same break room, there will be line dancing. Again, not my thing, but some people really enjoy it, and if it improves their work environment, I think that it's very much in line with Fayol's idea of esprit de corps. So anyway, here are some of the original principles of management, or theories of public administration, I should say. Thanks for watching my presentation, and I'll catch you next time.